I used to think working late was the price of being a good husband and father. Weeks blurred together, early flights, conference rooms, hotel beds that never felt like mine. I told myself I was building something for us. I believed my wife when she said she understood. When I came home, the house looked normal. Dinner on the table, laundry folded, our daughter telling me about school. But there was a strange rhythm to their lives that didn't include me. My wife kept her phone face down. She smiled too quickly when I walked into a room, and my daughter started watching me like she was afraid of what I might find out. My name is Max Grant, and I'm about to tell you how my perfect family turned out to be the biggest lie I'd ever lived. It was like walking into a sitcom, except I was the punchline nobody bothered to tell me about. The first real sign something was wrong came on a Tuesday night in October. I'd just returned from a 3-day conference in Denver, exhausted and looking forward to sleeping in my own bed. The house was pristine when I walked in. Too pristine, like someone had scrubbed away evidence of a party. "Hey, honey," Elise called from the kitchen, her voice pitched just a little too high. "How was your flight?" "Long," I said, dropping my bag by the door. "Where are the girls?" "Mia's at soccer practice. Riley's upstairs doing homework." She appeared in the doorway, beautiful as always with her auburn hair pulled back and her executive assistant smile firmly in place. "I made your favorite, pot roast." I should have been grateful. Instead, I felt like an actor who'd missed his cue and walked onto the wrong stage. Everything was perfect, and that was the problem. In 17 years of marriage, Elise had never once made pot roast without complaining about the smell. "That's thoughtful," I said, studying her face. "Special occasion? Can I cook for my husband without an interrogation?" She laughed, but it sounded forced. "You're so suspicious lately, Max. It's not attractive." There it was, the deflection. Turn it back on me, make me the paranoid husband. Classic Elise. I'd seen her use the same technique on difficult clients at her old job before she started working for Connor Blake's company 6 months ago. Connor Blake. Even thinking his name left a bad taste in my mouth. CEO of Blake Industries, one of those guys who wore expensive suits and drove cars that cost more than most people's houses. Elise had been thrilled to land the executive assistant position, said it was a career-defining opportunity. I'd been happy for her, proud even. What an idiot I was. "Dad's home." Riley bounded down the stairs, all legs and enthusiasm at 14. She hugged me tight, and for a moment everything felt normal again. "Did you bring me anything?" "Riley," Elise scolded, "don't be greedy." "It's okay," I said, pulling a small snow globe from my jacket pocket. "Denver skyline. Figured you could add it to your collection." Riley squealed with delight, but I noticed Elise watching us with an expression I couldn't quite read. Guilt, anxiety, or maybe just impatience for this family moment to end. "Where's your sister?" I asked Riley. "Soccer practice. Coach Martinez is making them run extra laps because they lost last weekend." Riley shook the snow globe, watching the fake snow swirl around the tiny buildings. "Oh, and Mom's boss came by yesterday to drop off some papers. He's really nice. He brought us pizza." The snow globe might as well have exploded in my hands. I looked at Elise, whose face had gone pale. "Your boss was here?" "Connor had some urgent documents that needed my review," she said quickly. "It was easier for him to drop them off than wait until morning. You know how demanding this job can be." "Right." I kept my voice level, but my mind was racing. In all my years of business travel, I'd never once dropped work off at a colleague's house. That's what email was for, that's what offices were for. And he brought pizza. The girls were hungry, and I was busy with the documents. He was just being considerate. Riley nodded enthusiastically. He got that good pizza from Tony's, not the cheap stuff, and he knew I liked pepperoni without even asking. Mom must have told him. "Must have," I agreed, looking at my wife. "That was very considerate of him." Elise's phone buzzed on the counter. She grabbed it immediately, checking the screen with an urgency that made my stomach clench. "I need to take this," she said. "Work call." She disappeared into the other room, her voice dropping to a whisper I couldn't make out. Riley was still admiring her snow globe, oblivious to the tension crackling through the air like electricity before a storm. That's when I noticed them. 2 wine glasses in the sink, both with lipstick stains. Elise's shade of red on one glass, nothing on the other. But there was a faint ring where someone's lips had touched the rim. "Riley," I said casually, "what time did Mom's boss leave yesterday?" Pretty late. I was already in bed, but I heard his car start up. It's really loud. Sounds like a motorcycle or something." Connor Blake drove a matte black Range Rover with a custom exhaust. I'd seen it in the company parking lot when I'd picked Elise up for lunch a few weeks ago. Definitely loud enough to wake a sleeping teenager. Dad? Riley was looking at me with concern. Are you okay? You look weird. Just tired, sweetheart. Long trip. I forced a smile. Why don't you go finish your homework? I'll call you when dinner's ready. She bounded back upstairs, and I was alone with the wine glasses and my growing suspicion. I could hear Elise's voice from the living room, still talking in that urgent whisper. The conversation had been going on for almost 10 minutes now. What kind of work call lasted that long at 7 in the evening? I walked quietly toward the living room, staying just out of sight. Elise was standing by the window, her back to me, phone pressed tight against her ear. Can't keep doing this, she was saying. Max is getting suspicious. Riley almost said something about the other night. My blood turned to ice water. I know, but we have to be more careful. Maybe we should cool things off for a while, just until... She paused, listening. Then she laughed, low and intimate. You're terrible, but I can't. Not tonight. He just got back. I backed away slowly, my heart hammering so hard I was sure she'd hear it. The pot roast smell that had seemed wrong before now made me nauseous. How long had this been going on? How many nights had I called home from some hotel room while Connor Blake was sitting in my living room, drinking wine with my wife? When Mia got home from soccer practice 20 minutes later, I was sitting at the kitchen table, staring at those wine glasses like they might explain everything. Hey, Dad. She dropped her gear bag by the door and grabbed a water bottle from the fridge. At 17, Mia was becoming more like her mother every day. Beautiful, smart, and apparently just as good at keeping secrets. How was Denver? Educational, I said. Mia, can I ask you something? She tensed slightly. Sure. Your mom's boss, Connor. How often does he come by the house? The water bottle slipped in her hands, and she had to catch it before it hit the floor. Not that often. Just sometimes when you're traveling and Mom has work stuff to catch up on. Work stuff? Yeah. She wouldn't meet my eyes. Dad, are you feeling okay? You look kind of pale. I'm fine. But I wasn't fine. I was the opposite of fine. I was a man who just realized his entire life was built on a foundation of lies, and the people he trusted most were the ones holding the sledgehammer. Mia, has your mom asked you not to mention these visits to me? The question hung in the air between us like a loaded gun. Mia's face went through a series of expressions: surprise, fear, guilt, and finally resignation. Dad, just answer the question. She said it would make you worry about her working too much, that you'd think Connor was taking advantage of her time. The words came out in a rush, like she'd been practicing them. She didn't want you to stress about it while you were traveling. Right, because my wife was so concerned about my stress levels. The same woman who'd spent the last 6 months picking fights about everything from my travel schedule to the way I loaded the dishwasher. I see. I stood up, suddenly feeling every one of my 38 years. Thanks for being honest with me, sweetheart. Dad, you're scaring me. Is everything okay? I looked at my eldest daughter, this smart, beautiful girl who'd been forced to lie for her mother, and felt something break inside my chest. Everything's going to be fine, Mia, I promise. But as I said it, I knew it was probably the last promise I'd be able to keep to my daughters for a very long time. The next morning, I did something I'd never done in 17 years of marriage. I went through Elise's things. Not proud of it, but desperate times and all that. She was in the shower, humming some song I didn't recognize while I carefully searched her dresser drawers. I found the first piece of evidence tucked inside an old jewelry box, a receipt from Tony's Pizza dated 3 days ago. The order was for 2 large pizzas, garlic bread, and a bottle of wine. Expensive wine, the kind Connor Blake probably considered a casual Tuesday night drink, but it was the handwritten note on the back that made my hands shake. Thanks for a perfect evening. Can't wait for next time. C. Perfect evening. While I was in a Denver hotel room, missing my family and counting down the hours until I could come home, my wife was having perfect evenings with her boss. Max? Elise's voice came from the bathroom. Can you grab me a towel from the linen closet? Sure, I called back, quickly returning the receipt to its hiding place. My voice sounded normal, which surprised me. Apparently, I was better at deception than I'd thought. Maybe it ran in the family. I brought her the towel, and she emerged from the bathroom looking like something out of a magazine, skin flushed from the hot water, hair wrapped up in that casual way that somehow looked effortless and perfect. 6 months ago, the sight would have made me forget about being late for work. Now it just made me wonder if Connor Blake had seen her like this. You're quiet this morning, she said, applying moisturizer with practiced efficiency. Everything okay? Just thinking about work. I sat on the edge of the bed, watching her get ready. Elise, can I ask you something? Shoot. She was focused on her reflection, applying mascara with surgical precision. Are you happy? The mascara wand paused halfway to her lashes. What kind of question is that? The kind a husband asks his wife when he's been traveling too much and wants to make sure they're okay. She turned to face me, and for a moment I saw something vulnerable in her expression. Guilt, maybe, or fear. Of course I'm happy, Max. We have a beautiful life. Do we? What's this about? You've been acting strange since you got back from Denver. There it was again, turning it back on me, making me the problem. I'm just wondering if we're as solid as I thought we were. Max. She sat down next to me, taking my hands in hers. Her skin was soft and warm, and she smelled like the expensive perfume I'd bought her for our anniversary. I love you. I love our family. Yes, things have been a little stressful with my new job, but that doesn't mean anything's wrong between us. I wanted to believe her. God, how I wanted to believe her. But the receipt was burning a hole in my memory, and I couldn't forget the way she'd whispered into that phone last night. Okay, I said finally. I just needed to hear you say it. She kissed me then, soft and sweet, and for a moment it felt like old times. Before Connor Blake, before the late-night work calls, before my daughters started looking at me like they were afraid of what I might discover. But when she pulled away, I noticed she wouldn't quite meet my eyes. After Elise left for work and the girls headed to school, I sat in my empty house and tried to figure out what to do next. I could confront her directly, but I'd already tried that and gotten nowhere. I could hire a private investigator, but that felt like admitting my marriage was over before I even knew for sure what was happening. Or I could do some investigating myself. I started with Connor Blake's social media profiles. The man was surprisingly active on LinkedIn and Instagram, posting pictures of business meetings, charity events, and expensive vacations. Most of it was standard CEO ego-stroking, but then I found something that made my coffee turn to acid in my stomach. A photo from last month, taken at some corporate retreat. Connor was standing with his arm around Elise, both of them smiling at the camera. The caption read, "Grateful for my amazing team, especially my right-hand woman, Elise Grant. Couldn't do it without her." The comments were what really got me. You two make a great team. Power couple vibes. Lucky to have such a dedicated assistant. And then, from Elise's account, "Best boss ever. Thanks for believing in me, Connor." I scrolled back through her Instagram, looking for other photos, other clues. There weren't many. Elise had always been more private on social media than most people our age. But I found a few pictures from company events, and in every single one where Connor appeared, they were standing just a little too close. His hand on her back, her leaning into him slightly. The kind of body language that screamed intimacy to anyone who knew how to look. How had I missed this? How had I been so blind? My phone rang, startling me out of my spiral. Owen Martinez, my best friend since college and Mia's soccer coach. "Hey man," he said without preamble. "We still on for drinks Friday? Sarah's been asking when you're going to come by for dinner again." Owen and his wife Sarah were the kind of couple that made you believe in marriage. High school sweethearts who still held hands in public after 20 years together. They'd always been our closest friends, the people we vacationed with and spent holidays with. If anyone would give me straight advice about this mess, it would be Owen. "Actually," I said, "can we move that up? I could use a beer and some perspective." "That bad, huh? What's going on?" I almost told him everything right then, but something held me back. Maybe pride, maybe hope that I was wrong about everything. Just work stress, and Elise has been distant lately. Marriage stuff. Been there. Owen's voice was understanding. "Tell you what, meet me at Murphy's after work. We'll figure it out." Murphy's Pub was the kind of place where middle-aged men went to complain about their jobs and pretend they were still 25. Dark wood, dim lighting, and a bartender named Frank who'd been pouring drinks there since before I was born. Owen was already at our usual table when I arrived, 2 beers waiting. "You look like hell," he said by way of greeting. "Thanks. You really know how to make a guy feel better." "That's what friends are for." He pushed one of the beers toward me. "Talk to me. What's going on with you and Elise?" I took a long drink, trying to figure out where to start. "How well do you know Connor Blake?" Owen's expression shifted slightly. "Elise's boss?" "Not well. Met him a couple times at school events." "Why?" "What's your impression of him?" "Rich, arrogant, probably thinks his money makes him God's gift to women." Owen studied my face. "Max, what aren't you telling me?" So I told him. All of it. The wine glasses, the pizza receipt, the late-night phone calls, the way my daughters looked at me like they were keeping secrets. Owen listened without interrupting, his expression growing darker with each detail. When I finished, he was quiet for a long moment, staring into his beer like it might have answers. "Shit, Max, I'm sorry. You think I'm right? You think she's cheating? I think you need to find out for sure before you do anything drastic. But yeah, it sounds bad." He leaned forward, lowering his voice. "Look, I wasn't going to say anything because I figured it was nothing, but last week when I was picking up Mia from practice, I saw Elise in the parking lot talking to some guy. Tall, expensive suit, driving a black Range Rover. They were standing pretty close, and when she saw me coming, she stepped away real quick." My heart sank. That was Connor. Probably. The thing is, Max, she looked guilty as hell when she saw me, like she'd been caught doing something she shouldn't. We sat in silence for a while, drinking our beers and watching the evening news on the TV above the bar. Some politician was giving a speech about family values, which seemed like a cosmic joke under the circumstances. "What are you going to do?" Owen finally asked. "I don't know. Part of me wants to confront her, demand the truth. But what if I'm wrong? What if there's an innocent explanation for all of this? And what if there isn't?" That was the question that had been eating at me all day. What if my worst fears were true? What if the woman I'd loved for 20 years, the mother of my children, had been lying to my face for months? Then I guess I'll have to figure out how to rebuild my life from scratch. Owen reached across the table and gripped my shoulder. "Whatever happens, you've got people in your corner. Don't forget that." I nodded, grateful for the support, even as I wondered how long it would last. In my experience, when marriages exploded, friendships often became casualties too. People picked sides, and it wasn't always the side you expected. But that was a problem for future Max to worry about. Present and Max just needed to get through the next few days without losing his mind completely. When I got home that night, the house was dark, except for the glow of the TV in the living room. Elise was curled up on the couch, wearing the silk pajamas I'd bought her for Christmas, watching some romantic comedy I didn't recognize. "How was drinks with Owen?" she asked without looking away from the screen. "Fine. How was your evening?" "Quiet. Girls finished their homework early, so we ordered Chinese and watched a movie." She finally turned to look at me. "You seem better. Less tense." "Yeah, well, Owen's good for perspective." She patted the couch next to her. "Come watch with me. It's almost over." I sat down, and she curled up against my side like she had thousands of times before. For a moment, it was easy to pretend everything was normal, that we were just a regular married couple, ending a regular day together. But then her phone buzzed on the coffee table, and I felt her tense against me. She didn't reach for it, but I could see the notification light blinking in the darkness. "Aren't you going to check that?" I asked. "It's probably just work. Can wait until morning." "Work. Right." Because Connor Blake was the kind of boss who sent urgent messages at 10 o'clock at night. The movie ended, and we went upstairs to bed. Elise fell asleep quickly, or at least pretended to, while I lay awake staring at the ceiling and listening to her breathe. She looked peaceful in sleep, younger somehow, and I found myself remembering the girl I'd fallen in love with in college. Smart, ambitious, full of dreams about the life we'd build together. When had it all gone wrong? When had I become the obstacle to her happiness instead of the partner in it? I must have dozed off eventually, because I woke up to the sound of Elise's phone buzzing on her nightstand. The clock read 2:17 a.m. She stirred, reaching for the phone with practiced efficiency, like she was used to late-night messages. I watched through barely open eyes as she read the text, her face illuminated by the screen's glow. She smiled, actually smiled, before typing back a quick response. Then she deleted the entire conversation and went back to sleep. That's when I knew for certain that my marriage was over. The only question now was what I was going to do about it. The next morning, I made a decision that would have seemed impossible just a week earlier. I called in sick to work and followed my wife. I'd never done anything like it before. In 20 years of marriage, I'd trusted Elise completely, never questioned her whereabouts or doubted her word. But trust, I was learning, was like a vase. Once it shattered, all the glue in the world couldn't make it whole again. Elise left for work at her usual time, 7:30 a.m., driving her silver Honda Civic. I waited 5 minutes, then followed in my truck, staying far enough back that she wouldn't notice me. It felt ridiculous, like something out of a bad movie, but I had to know. She drove straight to Blake Industries, a gleaming glass tower downtown that screamed success and money. I parked across the street and watched her walk into the building, looking every inch the professional executive assistant in her navy suit and heels. For 3 hours, nothing happened. I sat in my truck, drinking coffee from a thermos and feeling like the world's biggest idiot. Maybe Owen was right. Maybe I needed proof before I did anything drastic. Maybe I was just a paranoid husband who'd been traveling too much and letting his imagination run wild. Then, at 10:45 a.m., Connor Blake's black Range Rover pulled out of the parking garage with Elise in the passenger seat. They weren't going to a business meeting. I followed them to Riverside Park, a quiet spot on the outskirts of town where teenagers went to make out and adults went to walk their dogs. At 11 in the morning on a Wednesday, it was nearly deserted. I parked behind a cluster of trees and watched through binoculars I'd grabbed from my hunting gear. Connor and Elise were sitting on a bench by the lake, talking intently. There was nothing overtly sexual about their body language, but there was an intimacy there that made my chest tight. The way she leaned toward him when she talked, the way he touched her arm when he made a point. Then he kissed her. It wasn't a passionate movie-style kiss. It was soft, familiar, the kind of kiss shared by people who'd done it many times before. Elise didn't pull away or look surprised. She kissed him back, her hand resting on his chest. I put down the binoculars and sat in my truck for a long time, staring at nothing. Part of me had still been hoping I was wrong, that there was some innocent explanation for everything I'd observed, but there was no explaining away what I'd just seen. My wife was having an affair. The drive home was a blur. I felt numb, disconnected, like I was watching someone else's life fall apart. I kept thinking about the girls. How was I going to tell them? How do you explain to your daughters that their mother is a liar and their family is broken? I was so lost in thought that I almost missed the car in my driveway. A red BMW that I didn't recognize parked behind Elise's Honda like it belonged there. Elise was supposed to be at work. The girls were supposed to be at school. So who the hell was in my house? I parked on the street and approached carefully, my heart hammering. The front door was unlocked, which immediately set off alarm bells. Elise was paranoid about security, always double-checking locks and setting the alarm system. I could hear voices coming from the kitchen, Elise's laugh, and a woman's voice I didn't recognize. I moved quietly through the house, staying close to the walls like some kind of suburban spy. "Can't believe you're actually going through with this," the unknown woman was saying. "I mean, Max seems like such a nice guy." "Max is a nice guy," Elise replied. "That's the problem. Nice, predictable, boring. When was the last time he surprised me? When was the last time he made me feel like a woman instead of just a wife and mother?" I froze in the hallway, my hand gripping the wall for support. "But Connor? He makes me feel alive again, like I'm 25 and anything is possible." "And he's loaded," the other woman added. "Don't forget loaded." They both laughed, and I felt something die inside my chest. "The money doesn't hurt," Elise admitted. "But it's more than that, Tessa. Connor sees me, really sees me. Not just as someone to keep his house clean and his children fed." Tessa, I knew that name. Tessa Morrison, Elise's friend from her book club. A divorced real estate agent who'd been single for 3 years and seemed to collect other people's relationship drama like some women collected shoes. "What about the girls?" Tessa asked. "They're going to be devastated." "They'll adjust. Kids are resilient. And honestly, they'll probably be happier with Connor as a stepfather. He can give them things Max never could. Private schools, nice cars, college funds that aren't dependent on student loans." I had to grip the wall harder to keep from falling down. She'd already planned it all out. Our divorce, the girl's future, her new life with Connor Blake. While I'd been working 60-hour weeks to provide for our family, she'd been plotting to replace me with a richer model. "When are you going to tell Max?" Tessa asked. "Soon. Connor's being patient, but he wants to make things official. He's talking about taking me to Europe next month, and he doesn't want to sneak around anymore." "Europe? Damn, girl, you really hit the jackpot." "I deserve this, Tessa. I've spent 20 years being the perfect wife and mother, putting everyone else's needs before my own. For once in my life, I'm going to choose happiness." I'd heard enough. More than enough. I backed away from the kitchen, my mind reeling with rage and hurt, and a kind of clarity I'd never experienced before. Elise wanted happiness? Fine, but she wasn't going to get it at my expense, and she sure as hell wasn't going to use my daughters as pawns in her game. I left the house as quietly as I'd entered and drove to the one place I knew I could think clearly, my lawyer's office. David Kellerman had handled my business contracts for years, but I'd never needed his services for anything personal. He was a sharp guy in his 50s, with silver hair and the kind of calm demeanor that probably served him well in divorce court. "Max," he said, looking surprised when his secretary showed me in. "This is unexpected. What can I do for you?" "I need to file for divorce," I said without preamble, "and I need to do it fast." David's expression shifted to professional concern. "Okay, let's sit down and talk about this. What's the situation?" I told him everything. the affair, the secret meetings, the conversation I'd overheard between Elise and Tessa. David listened without judgment, taking notes and asking clarifying questions. "Do you have any documentation of the affair?" he asked when I finished. "I saw them together at the park this morning, but I don't have photos or anything like that." "We might want to consider hiring a private investigator to document the relationship. In this state, adultery can impact property division and spousal support." Do it, whatever it takes." David leaned back in his chair, studying me. "Max, I have to ask, are you sure you want to proceed this way? Have you considered marriage counseling or trying to work things out?" "She's already planning her new life with him. She's already decided our marriage is over. I'm just making it official." "All right, but I want you to understand what you're getting into. Divorce can get ugly, especially when there are children involved and significant assets at stake. Are you prepared for that?" I thought about Elise laughing with Tessa about replacing me with a richer model. I thought about my daughters being taught to lie and keep secrets. I thought about 20 years of marriage being dismissed as boring and predictable. "I'm prepared," I said. "What do I need to do?" We spent the next 2 hours going over my finances, my assets, and my options. David explained the divorce process, the timeline, and the likely outcomes. By the time I left his office, I had a plan and a private investigator's contact information. I also had a new understanding of just how much my life was about to change. The private investigator was a woman named Ray Dorsey, a former police detective who specialized in matrimonial cases. She was probably in her 50s, with short gray hair and the kind of no-nonsense attitude that inspired confidence. "I've seen it all, Mr. Grant," she said when we met at a coffee shop near her office. "Cheating spouses, hidden assets, secret families. Your case is pretty straightforward, which is good for you. How long will it take to get proof?" "Depends on how careful they're being. From what you've told me, they're not being very careful at all. I should have something concrete within a week." "And then?" "Then you'll have options. You can confront your wife with the evidence, or you can file for divorce and let her find out when she gets served. Either way, you'll be in a much stronger position." I chose option 2. If Elise wanted to play games, I was going to change the rules entirely. That evening, I went home and had dinner with my family like nothing had happened. Elise chatted about her day at work, carefully editing out any mention of her romantic lunch with Connor. The girls talked about school and friends and weekend plans. I smiled and nodded and played the part of the clueless husband. But inside, I was already gone. I was already planning my exit strategy, my revenge, and my new life without the woman who'd spent months lying to my face. After dinner, while Elise was helping Riley with homework, I pulled Mia aside. "Sweetheart, can we talk?" She followed me to my home office, looking nervous. "Am I in trouble?" "No, you're not in trouble, but I need to ask you something important, and I need you to be completely honest with me." Mia sat down across from my desk, her hands folded in her lap. At 17, she was almost an adult, but she still looked like my little girl when she was worried. "How long has your mother been having Connor Blake over to the house when I'm traveling?" The color drained from her face. "Dad." "Mia, I already know about the affair. I saw them together today. I'm not angry at you, but I need to understand how long this has been going on." She started crying then, quiet tears that broke my heart. "Since the summer. Maybe June?" She said it was work stuff at first, but then... She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "I knew it was wrong, Dad. I wanted to tell you, but she said it would destroy our family." "Oh, sweetheart." I came around the desk and pulled her into a hug. "This is not your fault. None of this is your fault." "Are you going to get divorced?" I could have lied. Should have lied, maybe, until everything was official. But Mia deserved honesty after months of being forced to keep secrets. "Yes," I said quietly. "I am." She cried harder then, and I held her while my own heart broke into 1,000 pieces. This was what Elise's happiness was costing. Our daughter's security, their trust in their parents, their belief that love could last. But I was done being the nice guy. I was done being predictable and boring and easy to replace. It was time for Elise to learn that actions have consequences, and some mistakes can't be fixed with a smile and an apology. Ray Dorsey called me on Friday afternoon with news that confirmed everything I already knew but still hit like a punch to the gut. "I've got photos," she said without preamble. "Hotel records, restaurant receipts, the whole 9 yards. Your wife and Connor Blake have been meeting regularly for the past 4 months. Always the same hotel, the Riverside Inn on Maple Street. Always the same room. They're not even trying to hide it anymore." "Email me everything," I said, my voice steady despite the rage building in my chest. "Already done. Mr. Grant, I have to tell you, in 20 years of doing this job, I've rarely seen such blatant disregard for discretion. They're acting like a couple, not like people having a secret affair. That stung more than it should have. They were comfortable together, confident in their relationship. While I'd been second-guessing every suspicious moment, they'd been building something real. There's something else, Ray continued. I followed your wife to lunch yesterday. She met with a divorce attorney. The floor seemed to drop out from under me. What? Patricia Wells, downtown. Specializes in high-asset divorces. Your wife was there for 2 hours. So Elise was already planning her exit strategy, probably figuring out how to maximize her settlement while minimizing the damage to her reputation. Well, she was about to learn that I could play that game too. Thank you, Ray. Send me your final bill. You sure you don't want me to keep watching? Sometimes there are more surprises. I've got all the surprises I can handle. After I hung up, I sat in my office staring at Ray's email. Photo after photo of my wife and her lover, looking happy and carefree. Elise laughing at something Connor said. Connor's hand on the small of her back as they walked into the hotel. The two of them kissing in his Range Rover like teenagers. 20 years of marriage reduced to evidence in a divorce file. I forwarded everything to David Kellerman with a simple message. File the papers. I want her served Monday morning. Then I went home to have what would probably be our last family dinner. Elise was in an unusually good mood, humming while she cooked and smiling at nothing in particular. She'd probably spent the afternoon planning her new life with Connor, figuring out how to break the news to me gently. Maybe she'd even rehearsed the speech, how she needed space to find herself, how we'd grown apart, how this was nobody's fault. You seem happy, I said, watching her stir pasta sauce. Just a good day at work. Connor's been very supportive lately, helping me take on more responsibility. She glanced at me over her shoulder. Actually, I've been thinking about taking some time off next week. Maybe we could go somewhere, just the two of us, reconnect? The audacity was breathtaking. She wanted to take a romantic trip with me while planning to divorce me for another man. Either she was a sociopath, or she was planning to use the trip to deliver her carefully rehearsed breakup speech. That sounds nice, I lied. Where were you thinking? Maybe that bed and breakfast in Vermont, the one we went to for our anniversary a few years ago? The same place where she'd told me she loved me more than anything in the world. The same place where we'd talked about growing old together. She really was going to use our history against me, turn our memories into weapons. Let me check my schedule, I said. This project at work is pretty demanding right now. Of course? Her smile faltered slightly. Work always comes first with you, doesn't it? And there it was, the subtle accusation, the implication that I was the problem in our marriage, that my dedication to providing for our family was somehow a character flaw. Someone has to pay for all this, I said, gesturing around our kitchen. The house, the cars, the girls' activities. Money doesn't grow on trees. I know that, Max. I'm not criticizing you. I just think we need to prioritize our relationship more. Right. Our relationship. The one she'd been systematically destroying for months while I worked to support the lifestyle she'd grown accustomed to. Mia and Riley came down for dinner, and we went through the motions of being a normal family. Riley chattered about her friends and her weekend plans. Mia was quieter than usual, shooting me worried glances when she thought her mother wasn't looking. Elise played the perfect mom, asking questions and offering advice like she actually cared about their answers. After dinner, while the girls were upstairs doing homework, Elise and I cleaned up together. It was a routine we'd followed for years. She washed, I dried, and we talked about our days. Tonight, the domesticity felt like a mockery. Max, she said as she handed me a plate to dry. Is everything okay between us? You've seemed distant lately. Just tired. Work's been stressful. Maybe you should think about cutting back on the travel. I know the money's good, but it's hard on all of us when you're gone so much. I almost laughed. She wanted me to travel less so I'd be around to witness her affair? Or maybe she was worried I'd stumble onto something that would expose her lies. I'll think about it, I said. She smiled and kissed my cheek, and I had to fight the urge to pull away. Her lips felt like poison against my skin. That night, after Elise fell asleep, I lay awake planning my next moves. The divorce papers would be served Monday morning, probably at her office. I could picture her shock, her scramble to call her lawyer, her frantic attempts to control the narrative. But I wasn't going to wait for her to spin this story. I was going to tell it myself, to the people who mattered. Saturday morning, I called Owen. Want to grab breakfast? I asked. I've got news. We met at Danny's Diner, a greasy spoon downtown where the coffee was strong and the booths offered privacy. Owen took one look at my face and ordered a double stack of pancakes. You look like you haven't slept in a week, he said. I haven't. Owen, I need to tell you something, and I need you to hear me out before you say anything. I told him about the investigation, the photos, the evidence. I showed him some of Ray's pictures on my phone, watching his expression shift from disbelief to anger to disgust. Jesus, Max, I'm sorry. I knew something was off, but this... He stared at a photo of Elise and Connor kissing. How long? At least 4 months. Maybe longer. And the girls know? Mia does. Riley suspects, but doesn't understand what she's seeing. I put my phone away. I'm filing for divorce Monday, but I wanted you to hear it from me first. Owen was quiet for a long moment, processing everything. Finally, he looked up at me with the kind of steady support that reminded me why we'd been friends for 20 years. What do you need? I need you to know that whatever Elise tells people, whatever story she comes up with to make herself look like the victim, this is the truth. She's been lying and cheating for months. I believe you, and for what it's worth, I think you're doing the right thing. Sarah's going to be devastated. She really loves Elise, but she'll understand. That was a relief. Owen and Sarah were our closest friends, and their opinion mattered to me more than I'd realized. There's something else, I said. I'm going to need somewhere to stay for a while, just until I figure out the living situation. Our guest room is yours for as long as you need it. I felt some of the tension leave my shoulders. Having allies in this fight was going to make all the difference. Sunday was surreal. Elise made pancakes for breakfast, and we all sat around the table like a normal family. She talked about maybe planting a garden in the spring, asked the girls about their plans for the day, suggested we all watch a movie together that evening. It was either the performance of a lifetime, or she was genuinely delusional about the state of our marriage. I spent the day watching her interact with our daughters, memorizing the moments before everything exploded. By tomorrow night, the girls would know the truth about their mother. They'd know that she'd been lying to them, using them, planning to abandon the life we'd built together. That evening, as we were getting ready for bed, Elise brought up the Vermont trip again. I called the bed and breakfast, she said, brushing her hair in front of the mirror. They have availability next weekend. What do you think? Elise, I said carefully, are you happy in our marriage? She stopped brushing, meeting my eyes in the mirror. What do you mean? I mean exactly what I asked. Are you happy being married to me? For a moment, I thought she might tell me the truth. Her expression flickered, and I saw something that might have been guilt or regret. Then the mask slipped back into place. Of course I'm happy. We have our challenges, like any couple, but I love you, Max. I love our life together. The lie came so easily, so smoothly, that I wondered how many others she'd told over the years. How long had she been practicing deception? How much of our marriage had been real? Good, I said. I just wanted to make sure. She smiled and kissed me goodnight, and I kissed her back one last time, tasting the lies on her lips. Monday morning couldn't come fast enough. Monday morning arrived gray and cold, with a kind of October drizzle that made everything look miserable. Perfect weather for ending a marriage. I got up at my usual time, showered, and dressed for work like it was any other day. Elise was still sleeping when I left, curled up in our bed wearing the silk nightgown I'd bought her for Valentine's Day. In a few hours, she'd be served with divorce papers, and this peaceful morning routine would become a memory. I'd arranged to have the papers served at her office at 10 a.m. David Kellerman had recommended a process server who specialized in workplace deliveries. Professional, discreet, but unmistakably official. Elise would be at her desk, probably reviewing Connor's schedule for the day, when her world came crashing down. At 9:45, I was sitting in my own office, staring at my phone and waiting for confirmation. My hands were shaking slightly, which annoyed me. After everything Elise had done, after months of lies and betrayal, I shouldn't feel nervous about this moment. But 20 years of marriage doesn't end without leaving scars. At 10:07, my phone buzzed with a text from the process server. Package delivered. Subject appeared shocked. No complications. It was done. After months of suspicion and days of investigation and planning, it was finally done. I tried to focus on work, but concentration was impossible. Every few minutes, I found myself checking my phone, waiting for the inevitable call from Elise. When it finally came, at 10:43, I almost didn't answer. Max. Her voice was tight, controlled, but I could hear the panic underneath. We need to talk. About what? Don't play games with me. You know what? These papers... Max, what the hell is this? It's a divorce filing, Elise. I would have thought that was obvious. But why? I don't understand. We were talking about taking a trip together. We were working on our marriage. The audacity was stunning. Even now, with legal documents in her hands, she was going to pretend innocence. Were we working on our marriage when you were fucking Connor Blake? I asked quietly. The silence on the other end of the line stretched for so long I thought she might have hung up. Max? I know, Elise. I know about the hotel rooms, the lunch dates, the late-night phone calls. I know you've been bringing him to our house when I'm traveling. I know you met with a divorce attorney last week. So please spare me the shocked wife routine. How long have you known? Her voice was smaller now, defeated. Long enough to document everything. Long enough to protect myself and the girls. The girls. She sounded like she was going to cry. Max, please, we need to think about the girls. We can work this out. We can go to counseling. We can... No, we can't. You made your choice, Elise. You chose Connor Blake over our family. Now you get to live with the consequences. It's not what you think. It's not some sordid affair. I love him, Max. I'm in love with him. Somehow, that hurt worse than all the lies. If it had been just sex, just a midlife crisis, maybe we could have worked through it. But love? Love meant she'd been emotionally gone from our marriage long before she'd started sleeping with her boss. Congratulations, I said. I hope you'll be very happy together. Max, wait. I hung up. For the next hour, she called repeatedly. I let every call go to voicemail, listening to her messages grow increasingly desperate and angry. Max, pick up the phone. We need to discuss this like adults. You can't just blindside me like this. I have rights. Think about what you're doing to our daughters. Think about our family. Fine. Don't answer. But this isn't over. I'm not going to let you destroy everything we've built together. That last message made me laugh, actually laugh out loud. She wasn't going to let me destroy everything. She'd been systematically dismantling our marriage for months, and now she was worried about destruction. At lunch, I drove to the girls' school. I'd already arranged to pull them both out early, Mia from her AP English class and Riley from algebra. They needed to hear the truth from me before Elise had a chance to spin her version of events. Dad? Riley looked confused as we walked to my truck. Why are we leaving school? Are we in trouble? No, sweetheart. But we need to have a family conversation, and I wanted to do it somewhere private. I took them to Riverside Park, the same place where I'd watched their mother kiss another man just a few days earlier. We sat at a picnic table overlooking the lake, and I tried to figure out how to explain that their world was about to change forever. Girls, I began, I need to tell you something important about your mother and me. Mia's face went pale. She already knew what was coming. We're getting divorced. Riley's mouth fell open. What? Why? You guys seemed fine yesterday. Sometimes adults are good at hiding their problems, I said carefully. Your mother and I haven't been happy together for a while, and we've decided it's better for everyone if we live separately. But why? Riley's eyes were filling with tears. Can't you go to counseling? Can't you fix it? This was the hardest part, explaining adult betrayal to a 14-year-old who still believed in fairy tales. Sometimes relationships can't be fixed, sweetheart. Sometimes people grow apart, and the best thing to do is end things before anyone gets hurt worse. Is it because of Connor? Mia asked quietly. Riley looked between us, confused. Who's Connor? I looked at Mia, and she nodded slightly. She understood that the time for secrets was over. Connor Blake is your mother's boss, I said. They've been involved for several months. That's why we're getting divorced. Riley's confusion shifted to shock, then anger. Mom's cheating? With her boss? Yes. But that's disgusting. How could she do that to you? To us? I reached across the table and took her hand. I don't know, sweetheart. Sometimes people make choices that hurt the people they're supposed to love most. Where are we going to live? Mia asked. What's going to happen to us? We're going to figure it out together. The most important thing you need to know is that none of this is your fault, and both your mother and I love you very much. That's never going to change. But even as I said it, I wondered if it was true. Did Elise really love the girls, or were they just accessories to the life she was trying to upgrade? We talked for another hour, the girls asking questions I didn't have good answers for. Where would they live? Would they have to change schools? Would they still see their friends? Would Connor become their stepfather? That last question, from Riley, made my stomach clench. The thought of Connor Blake playing father to my daughters, of him sitting at the head of our dinner table and helping with homework and attending school events, was almost unbearable. Let's take things one step at a time, I said. Right now, nothing has to change. We're still a family, just a different kind of family. When I dropped them back at school for their afternoon classes, Mia lingered by the truck. Dad, I'm sorry I didn't tell you sooner. About Connor, I mean. Mom made me promise, and I didn't know what to do. You have nothing to apologize for, sweetheart. Your mother put you in an impossible position. That's on her, not you. Are you going to be okay? The question caught me off guard. When had my 17-year-old daughter become the one worrying about me? I'm going to be fine, I said, and for the first time in weeks, I actually believed it. We're all going to be fine. That evening, I went home to pack a bag. Owen had insisted I stay with them until the living situation was sorted out, and I'd accepted gratefully. The house felt different now, tainted by months of deception and betrayal. I wasn't sure I'd ever be able to live there again without thinking about Connor Blake sitting on my couch, eating at my table, sleeping in my bed. Elise was waiting in the living room when I walked in. She'd been crying. Her eyes were red and puffy, and her makeup was smeared. For a moment, she looked like the girl I'd fallen in love with in college, vulnerable and lost. Then she opened her mouth, and the illusion shattered. "How could you do this to me, Max? How could you humiliate me like this, having those papers served at my office where everyone could see?" "Humiliate you?" I stared at her in disbelief. "You've been fucking your boss for months, and you're worried about being humiliated?" "Don't be crude, and keep your voice down. The girls are upstairs." "The girls already know. I told them this afternoon." Her face went white. "You what? Max, you had no right—" "I had every right. They're my daughters, too, and they deserve to hear the truth from me instead of whatever lies you were planning to tell them." "What did you say? What did you tell them about Connor?" "I told them their mother is a cheater and a liar. I told them you've been bringing your lover into our home while I was working to support this family. I told them the truth." She started crying again, but this time it looked calculated, like she was trying to manipulate me into feeling sorry for her. "Max, please. I know I made mistakes, but we can fix this. Connor means nothing to me. It was just a mistake, a moment of weakness. I choose you. I choose our family." "You chose Connor Blake the first time you kissed him. You chose him every time you lied to me, every time you brought him into our home, every time you made our daughters complicit in your betrayal." I headed toward the stairs. "I'm packing a bag. I'll be staying at Owen's until we figure out the custody arrangements. You can't take the girls away from me. I won't let you." I stopped halfway up the stairs and looked back at her. "You took them away from me months ago when you decided to blow up our family for a richer man. Now you get to explain to them why Mommy's happiness was more important than their security." I packed quickly, throwing clothes and toiletries into a duffel bag while Elise stood in the doorway, alternating between tears and threats. She was going to fight for custody. She was going to take half of everything I'd worked for. She was going to make sure I regretted treating her like this. Let her try. I had documentation of her affair, proof of her lies, evidence of her plans to abandon our marriage. Any family court judge would see exactly what kind of woman I'd been married to. As I was leaving, Riley appeared at the top of the stairs. "Dad, are you leaving us?" "I'm leaving your mother, sweetheart. I'm not leaving you. I'll see you tomorrow, okay?" She nodded, but she looked scared and confused, and it broke my heart all over again. I drove to Owen's house with my entire life packed into a single bag, feeling lighter than I had in months. For the first time since this nightmare began, I was in control of my own story, and I was just getting started. The next few days passed in a blur of legal meetings, phone calls, and uncomfortable conversations. Word of the divorce spread quickly through our social circle, and I found myself having to explain the situation over and over again to shocked friends and neighbors. Most people were supportive, especially after I shared some of the details about Elise's affair. But a few, particularly some of the wives in our neighborhood, seemed to think I was being too harsh, that marriages could survive infidelity with enough counseling and commitment. Those people had never seen the photos Ray Dorsey had taken. They'd never listened to their wife laugh about replacing them with a richer model. On Wednesday evening, I was having dinner at Owen's house when Sarah brought up something that had been bothering her. "I ran into Tessa Morrison at the grocery store today," she said, passing the salad bowl. She seemed nervous, guilty almost. When I mentioned the divorce, she got really flustered and made some excuse to leave. I exchanged glances with Owen. We hadn't told Sarah about Tessa's role in covering for Elise's affair, but I'd been wondering when that would come to light. "Tessa knew," I said simply. "She was helping Elise hide the affair." Sarah's fork clattered against her plate. "What? But she's been our friend for years. She was at our house for dinner just last month, acting completely normal." "She was covering for Elise, probably enjoying the drama of it all." "That bitch." Sarah rarely cursed, so the vehemence in her voice surprised me. I trusted her. We all trusted her. And she was laughing at us behind our backs? "Welcome to my world," I said grimly. The conversation was interrupted by my phone ringing. Mia's name appeared on the screen. "Hey, sweetheart, what's up?" "Dad, can you come get me? She's not doing well." I was already reaching for my keys. "What do you mean? Is she hurt?" "She's been drinking since she got home from work. She's crying and saying crazy things about Connor and the divorce and how you're trying to destroy her life. Riley's scared." "I'm on my way. Can you and Riley go to your room and lock the door until I get there?" "Yeah, Dad, hurry. She's really scaring us." I made the drive to my former home in record time, my mind racing with worst-case scenarios. Elise had always been a light drinker, a glass of wine with dinner, maybe two on special occasions. If she was drunk enough to frighten the girls, she must be in a really dark place. I found Mia and Riley huddled in Mia's bedroom, both looking shaken. Riley had been crying, and Mia had her arms around her sister protectively. "Where's your mother?" I asked. "Downstairs in the living room," Mia said. "She's on the phone with someone, yelling about lawyers and money and how you're trying to ruin her." I could hear Elise's voice from downstairs, raised and slurred, though I couldn't make out the words. "Pack some clothes," I told the girls. "You're coming to stay with me at Uncle Owen's house tonight." "Is Mom going to be okay?" Riley asked in a small voice. "Your mom is going through a difficult time right now," I said carefully. "But that's not your responsibility to fix. My job is to keep you safe." I helped them pack overnight bags while Elise continued her drunken phone conversation downstairs. As we were getting ready to leave, I heard her voice getting closer. Max, is that you up there?" She appeared at the top of the stairs, swaying slightly, holding a wine glass that was mostly empty. Her hair was disheveled, her makeup smeared, and she was wearing the same clothes she'd worn to work that morning. "Girls, go wait in the car," I said, handing Mia my keys. "But Dad, go, now." They hurried past their mother, who barely seemed to notice them. Her attention was focused entirely on me, and the expression on her face was a mixture of rage and desperation. "You can't take them," she said, her words slightly slurred. "They're my daughters, too. I have rights." "You have the right to be a responsible parent," I said evenly. "Right now, you're drunk and scaring them. They're coming with me." "This is all your fault." She took a step toward me, wine sloshing in her glass. "If you hadn't been so cold, so distant, none of this would have happened. I never would have needed Connor if you'd been a better husband." "Right. I forced you to cheat by working to support our family. That makes perfect sense." "You don't understand what it's like, being married to someone who's never really there. Do you know how lonely I've been? How invisible I've felt?" For a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. Then I remembered the conversation I'd overheard between her and Tessa, the casual way she'd dismissed 20 years of marriage as boring and predictable. "You felt lonely, so you decided to fuck your boss and teach our daughters to lie about it. Real mature, Elise. Don't you dare judge me. Don't you dare stand there and act like you're some kind of victim. You checked out of this marriage years ago." "I checked out? I was working 60-hour weeks to pay for this house, the girls' activities, your car, your clothes, your lifestyle. While you were playing house with Connor Blake, I was building a future for our family." "Our family?" She laughed bitterly. "You mean your idea of what our family should be? You never asked me what I wanted. You never asked if I was happy being just a wife and mother. You could have talked to me. You could have told me you were unhappy instead of sneaking around behind my back. Would you have listened? Really? Or would you have just promised to try harder and then gone back to putting work first?" The question hung in the air between us, and I realized I didn't have a good answer. Maybe I had been distant. Maybe I had taken her for granted. But that didn't excuse what she'd done. "It doesn't matter now," I said finally. "What matters is that our daughters are downstairs in my car, scared and confused because their mother is drunk and out of control. Get some help, Elise, for their sake if not for yours." I turned to leave, but her voice stopped me. "Connor asked me to marry him." I looked back at her, this woman I'd loved for 20 years, and felt nothing but pity. "Congratulations. I hope you'll be very happy together." "He loves me, Max. Really loves me. Not the way you love me, like I'm just another responsibility to manage. He sees me as a woman, not just a wife and mother." "Then you should be with him. Sign the divorce papers and we can all move on with our lives." "It's not that simple. There's the house, the custody arrangements, the financial settlements. My lawyer says I'm entitled to half of everything." "Your lawyer can talk to my lawyer. I'm done negotiating with you directly." I started down the stairs again, but she followed me, still talking. "You're going to regret this, Max. You're going to regret throwing away 20 years of marriage because of one mistake." "One mistake?" I stopped and turned back to her. "Elise, you've been having an affair for months. You brought him into our home, made our daughters lie for you, and planned to divorce me for a richer man. That's not one mistake. That's a pattern of betrayal. I never meant for it to go this far. It just happened. Bullshit. Affairs don't just happen. They're a series of choices, and you made every one of them consciously. I left her standing at the top of the stairs and walked out of the house that had been our home for 12 years. The girls were waiting in the car, both looking worried and scared. "Is Mom okay?" Riley asked as I started the engine. "Your mom is going through a hard time right now," I said. "But she's going to be fine. We're all going to be fine." As we drove away, I caught a glimpse of Elise in the rearview mirror, standing in the doorway watching us leave. For a moment, she looked small and lost, and I felt a flicker of the old protective instinct. Then I remembered the photos of her with Connor Blake, and the feeling passed. Back at Owen's house, Sarah fussed over the girls, making them hot chocolate and setting up sleeping bags in the living room like it was a fun sleepover instead of a family crisis. Owen and I sat in his kitchen, drinking beer and trying to figure out what came next. "You're going to need to file for emergency custody," he said. "If Elise is drinking and behaving erratically, the court needs to know." "I don't want to destroy her completely. She's still their mother." "Max, she's already destroyed herself. You're just documenting it." He was right, but it still felt wrong somehow. 24 hours ago, we'd been a family, dysfunctional and built on lies, maybe, but still a family. Now I was preparing to take her children away from her in court. "What if I'm making a mistake?" I asked. "What if there was a way to work through this?" Owen looked at me like I'd lost my mind. "Work through what? She cheated on you for months, lied to your face, involved your daughters in the deception, and is now trying to take half your assets to start a new life with her lover. What exactly would you be working through? 20 years of history, 2 beautiful daughters, a life we built together. A life she chose to destroy. Max, I've known you since college. You're a good man, a loyal friend, and a devoted father. But you're also too forgiving for your own good. Elise is counting on that. She's counting on you being the nice guy who'll roll over and let her have whatever she wants. So what are you saying?" "I'm saying it's time to stop being the nice guy. It's time to fight for yourself and your daughters. It's time to show Elise that actions have consequences." I thought about that as I lay awake on Owen's couch that night, listening to my daughters sleep in the next room. For 20 years, I'd been the responsible one, the one who put family first and sacrificed his own needs for the greater good. I'd worked long hours to provide for them, traveled constantly to advance my career, and put Elise's happiness ahead of my own. And what had it gotten me? A cheating wife, confused daughters, and a front row seat to the destruction of everything I'd worked to build. Maybe Owen was right. Maybe it was time to stop being the nice guy. Maybe it was time to fight back. The next 2 weeks were a whirlwind of legal maneuvering, custody negotiations, and public humiliation that I hadn't anticipated. Word of Elise's affair spread through our social circle like wildfire, and suddenly everyone had an opinion about our marriage and our divorce. Some people were sympathetic, especially after they learned the details about Connor Blake and the extent of Elise's deception, but others seemed to think I was being vindictive, that I should be more understanding of her midlife crisis and more willing to work toward reconciliation. Those people clearly didn't understand what I was dealing with. David Kellerman had filed for emergency custody after the incident at the house, and the court had granted me temporary primary custody pending a full hearing. Elise was allowed supervised visits with the girls, but she had to be sober and accompanied by a court-appointed social worker. She'd been furious about the arrangement, accusing me of trying to poison our daughters against her. But the truth was, I didn't need to poison them against anyone. They'd seen her drunk and out of control. They'd been forced to keep her secrets. They were smart enough to draw their own conclusions. Connor Blake, meanwhile, had been conspicuously absent from the drama. According to my sources, and in a town like ours, everyone had sources, he'd been trying to distance himself from the situation, probably on the advice of his own lawyers. His wife Stephanie had filed for divorce the day after my papers were served, and he was facing his own legal and financial challenges. It turned out that having an affair with a subordinate was frowned upon by his company's board of directors. Who would have thought? On a Friday afternoon, 3 weeks after serving the divorce papers, I got a call from Ray Dorsey. "I've got something you need to see," she said. "Can you meet me at my office?" I found her waiting with a manila envelope and a grim expression. "What is it?" I asked. "Your wife and Connor Blake met yesterday at the Riverside Inn, same room they've been using for months, but this time they weren't alone." She slid a photograph across the desk. It showed Elise, Connor, and a third man I didn't recognize, all sitting at a table covered with documents. "Who's the third guy?" "Private investigator. They hired him to dig up dirt on you." My blood ran cold. "What kind of dirt?" The kind that doesn't exist, which is why they're getting creative. They're looking into your business dealings, your travel expenses, your relationships with female colleagues. They're trying to build a case that you've been unfaithful to. But I haven't been. I know that, and you know that. But if they can manufacture enough suspicion, they can muddy the waters in court. Make it look like both parties were unfaithful, which would level the playing field in the divorce settlement. I stared at the photograph, feeling a familiar rage building in my chest. It wasn't enough for Elise to cheat and lie and destroy our family. Now she was trying to destroy my reputation too. "There's more," Ray said. I followed them after the meeting. They went to a real estate office downtown. Looks like they're shopping for houses together. Already? Already. Expensive houses, from what I could see. The kind that require 2 substantial incomes or 1 very large settlement. The picture was becoming clearer. Elise wasn't just trying to divorce me. She was trying to take me for everything I was worth so she could start her new life with Connor in style. "What do you recommend?" I asked. "Fight fire with fire. If they want to play dirty, we can play dirty too. I've been documenting their relationship for weeks. I have photos, hotel records, witness statements. We can make their affair very public, very embarrassing." "How public?" Ray smiled, and it wasn't a nice smile. "Ever hear of the Havenfield Community Facebook page?" I had. It was a local gossip forum disguised as a neighborhood watch group, where people shared everything from lost pet announcements to complaints about noisy neighbors. It had over 3,000 members, including most of our friends, neighbors, and business associates. "You want to post the photos online?" "I want to destroy their reputations the way they're trying to destroy yours. Elise wants to play the victim? Let's show everyone what kind of victim she really is." I thought about it for a long moment. It was tempting, the idea of exposing their affair to everyone we knew, of making them face the consequences of their actions publicly, but it also felt petty, vindictive. Then I remembered the investigator they'd hired to dig up dirt on me, and my hesitation evaporated. "Do it," I said. Ray's post went live that evening, just as people were getting home from work and checking their phones. It was masterfully crafted, factual, detailed, and devastating. She'd included photos of Elise and Connor at the hotel, at restaurants, and in his Range Rover. She'd provided dates, times, and locations. She'd even included screenshots of hotel bills showing Connor Blake paying for rooms while I was out of town on business. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Within an hour, the post had dozens of comments, most of them expressing shock and support for me. People I barely knew were sharing their own stories of betrayal and offering words of encouragement. Several of Elise's former friends publicly distanced themselves from her, saying they had had no idea about the affair, but it was Tessa Morrison's response that really caught my attention. She'd posted a long defensive comment about how marriage is complicated and people shouldn't judge situations they don't understand. She'd also made some snide remarks about bitter ex-husbands and public humiliation tactics. I screenshotted her comment and sent it to Ray with a simple message. "Can we do something about this?" Her response came back within minutes. "Already on it." The next morning, Ray posted a follow-up that included audio recordings of Tessa's conversations with Elise. Apparently, she'd been wearing a wire during one of their coffee dates, and she'd captured Tessa encouraging the affair and helping Elise plan her exit strategy. Tessa's real estate license was suspended pending an ethics investigation within the week. But the real fireworks came on Sunday, when Connor Blake's wife Stephanie decided to join the conversation. Stephanie Blake had been quiet since filing for divorce, maintaining a dignified silence while her world fell apart around her. But Ray's Facebook post had apparently pushed her past her breaking point. Her response was a masterpiece of controlled fury. "Since my soon-to-be ex-husband's affair with Elise Grant has become a matter of public discussion, I feel compelled to share some additional facts. This is not Connor's first workplace affair. In the past 5 years, he has had inappropriate relationships with at least 3 female employees, all of whom were subsequently fired or forced to resign when the relationships ended. Elise Grant is simply the latest in a long line of women who have confused professional advancement with personal attraction. I wish her luck in her new relationship, as she will undoubtedly need it when Connor inevitably moves on to his next conquest. I also want to publicly thank Max Grant for exposing this situation, as it has finally given me the evidence I needed to protect my own interests in our divorce proceedings." The comment was shared hundreds of times within hours. By Monday morning, it was the talk of the entire town. Connor Blake's reputation was destroyed. His company's board called an emergency meeting and voted to remove him as CEO. His wife's divorce attorney filed for an emergency injunction, freezing all of his assets. His Range Rover was repossessed by the bank. And Elise? Elise found herself unemployed, publicly humiliated and romantically involved with a man who had no money and no prospects. On Tuesday evening, she called me for the first time since the Facebook posts went viral. "Max," she said, her voice small and defeated. "We need to talk." "About what?" "About ending this. About settling the divorce quietly without any more public drama." "I'm listening." "I'll sign whatever papers you want. I won't fight for custody or alimony or half the assets. I just want this to be over." It was everything I'd wanted to hear 3 weeks ago. Total capitulation, complete victory. But somehow it didn't feel as satisfying as I'd expected. "What about Connor?" I asked. Connor is dealing with his own problems right now. We've decided to take a break from our relationship until things settle down." "A break? How convenient." "Max, please. I know I hurt you. I know I made terrible choices. But I'm paying for them now. We're both paying for them." She was right about that. The Facebook posts had achieved their intended effect, but they had also made our private pain very public. The girls were embarrassed by the attention, and I was tired of being the center of town gossip. "I'll have David draw up a settlement agreement," I said finally. "You can review it with your lawyer." "Thank you. And Max, I am sorry. For all of it. I know that doesn't change anything, but I needed you to know." After I hung up, I sat in Owen's kitchen staring at my phone and trying to figure out how I felt. Victorious, vindicated. Mostly, I just felt tired. The settlement was finalized 2 weeks later. Elise signed over her rights to the house, accepted minimal alimony, and agreed to joint custody with me as the primary guardian. In return, I agreed to take down the Facebook posts and refrain from any further public discussion of the affair. Connor Blake left town shortly after his company terminated his employment. Word was that he'd moved back to his hometown in Ohio, where his parents owned a small manufacturing business. From CEO to middle management in the span of a month. Quite a fall from grace. Elise found a job at a small accounting firm across town, making about half of what she'd earned as Connor's executive assistant. She moved into a modest apartment and began the slow process of rebuilding her life and her relationship with our daughters. As for me, I moved back into our house, my house now, and tried to figure out what came next. The girls were doing better, adjusting to the new reality with the resilience that teenagers somehow managed to find. Mia had started seeing a counselor to work through her feelings about the divorce, and Riley was throwing herself into school and soccer with renewed focus. We were healing, all of us, in our own ways. On a Saturday morning in November, exactly 2 months after I'd first suspected the affair, I was making pancakes for the girls when Riley asked me a question that caught me off guard. "Dad, are you happy now?" I looked at my daughters, Mia reading at the kitchen table, Riley setting out plates and syrup, and realized that despite everything we'd been through, despite the pain and anger and public humiliation, the answer was yes. "I'm getting there, sweetheart. We all are." And for the first time in months, that felt like enough. 6 months later, Elise married a man she met at her new job, a quiet accountant named Robert who drove a sensible sedan and lived in a modest house across town. She seemed genuinely happy, and more importantly, she seemed to have learned something from the wreckage of our marriage. Connor Blake, according to the Gossip Network, had moved to Florida and was working as a regional sales manager for an industrial supply company. His ex-wife Stephanie had remarried and was reportedly very happy with her new husband, a college professor who appreciated her intelligence and treated her with respect. Tessa Morrison had moved to another state after losing her real estate license, and none of us missed her. As for me, I was still single, still working too much, and still figuring out how to be a full-time single father. But I was also happier than I'd been in years, free from the weight of a marriage built on lies and compromises that only went one way. The girls were thriving. Mia had been accepted to 3 colleges and was planning to study journalism. Riley had made the varsity soccer team and was talking about trying out for the school play. They saw their mother every other weekend and seemed to have forgiven her, which was more than I'd managed to do. But forgiveness, I'd learned, was a process, not a destination. And some betrayals leave scars that never fully heal. On a warm evening in May, almost a year after the divorce was finalized, I was sitting on my back porch watching Riley practice soccer drills in the yard when my phone rang. It was an unknown number, but something made me answer. "Max, it's Connor." I almost hung up immediately, but curiosity got the better of me. "What do you want, Connor?" "I wanted to apologize. I know it's too late, and I know it doesn't change anything, but I needed you to know that I'm sorry for what I did to your family." "Okay, apology noted." "I also wanted you to know that I never meant for things to go as far as they did. It started as just, flirtation, I guess, office chemistry. But then it became something more, and by the time I realized how much damage we were causing, it was too late to stop. You could have stopped at any time, I said. You could have transferred Elise to another department, or found another job yourself, or just been a decent human being and ended it before anyone got hurt. You're right. I was selfish and cowardly, and I hurt a lot of people because of it. Yes, you did. There was a long pause, and I could hear traffic in the background wherever he was calling from. How are the girls? He asked finally. They're fine. They're better than fine, actually. They're thriving. Good. That's good. I always liked them, you know. They're smart kids. They are, and they're my kids, not yours. Don't forget that. I won't. Max, I know you have every reason to hate me, but I want you to know that I never tried to come between you and your daughters. Whatever else happened, I never wanted to hurt them. But you did hurt them. You hurt them by taking their mother away from their family. You hurt them by making them complicit in your lies. You hurt them by destroying their sense of security and stability. I know, and I'll regret that for the rest of my life. I believed him, actually. He sounded genuinely remorseful, genuinely broken by the consequences of his choices. But remorse didn't undo the damage, and regret didn't rebuild broken trust. Is there anything else? I asked. Just take care of yourself, Max. You're a good man. You deserved better than what Elise and I put you through. Yes, I did. After I hung up, I sat on my porch for a long time, watching my daughter practice soccer and thinking about forgiveness and second chances and the price of betrayal. Connor Blake had called to apologize, which was more than I'd expected. Elise had rebuilt her life and seemed to have learned from her mistakes. Tessa Morrison was gone, and good riddance. My daughters were happy and healthy and moving forward with their lives. Justice, I realized, wasn't always about punishment. Sometimes it was just about truth, consequences, and the opportunity to start over. The sun was setting behind the trees, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Riley finished her drills and jogged over to the porch, sweaty and grinning. Dad, did you see that last goal? I think I'm finally getting the hang of that corner kick technique Coach Martinez taught us. I saw it. It was perfect. She flopped down on the porch steps, still breathing hard. Dad, can I ask you something? Shoot. Do you ever miss being married? I mean, not to Mom specifically, but just having someone around all the time? It was a surprisingly mature question from my 15-year-old daughter, and it deserved an honest answer. Sometimes, I said, I miss having someone to share things with, someone to talk to at the end of the day. But I don't miss being lied to, and I don't miss feeling like I was failing at something I was trying so hard to make work. Do you think you'll get married again someday? Maybe, if I find the right person, someone who values honesty and loyalty and puts family first. Good. You deserve to be happy, Dad. Really happy, not just pretending everything is fine happy. I looked at this wise, beautiful girl who'd grown up too fast over the past year, and felt my heart swell with pride and love. I am happy, sweetheart. Maybe not the way I expected to be, but happy nonetheless. Good, she said, standing up and stretching. I'm going to shower before dinner. And Dad, thanks for fighting for us. Thanks for not just rolling over and letting Mom take us away. She headed inside, leaving me alone with my thoughts and the dying light of day. I thought about the man I'd been a year ago, trusting, naive, willing to sacrifice anything for the sake of keeping the peace. That man was gone, replaced by someone harder, more cynical, but also more honest about the realities of human nature. I thought about Elise, probably making dinner for her new husband in her modest apartment across town. I hoped she was happy. I hoped she'd learned something from the destruction of our marriage. But mostly, I hoped she understood that some betrayals can't be undone, and some trust, once broken, can never be fully repaired. I thought about Connor Blake in Florida, starting over in middle age with nothing but regrets and the knowledge that his choices had destroyed multiple families. I didn't hate him anymore. Hate was too exhausting to maintain, but I didn't forgive him either. Some actions don't deserve forgiveness. And I thought about my daughters, resilient and strong and determined to build better lives than the one they'd witnessed falling apart. They were my greatest accomplishment, my most important legacy, and the proof that something good could come from even the worst betrayals. The porch light came on automatically as darkness fell, and I could hear the sounds of my family, my real family, moving around inside the house. Mia was probably doing homework, Riley was in the shower, and soon we'd all gather around the dinner table to talk about our days and make plans for the weekend. It wasn't the life I'd planned, but it was a good life. An honest life. A life built on truth instead of lies. On loyalty instead of betrayal. On love that didn't come with conditions or expiration dates. I stood up, brushed off my jeans, and headed inside to join my daughters for dinner. Behind me, the porch light illuminated the empty chairs where Elise used to sit, where Connor Blake had once been welcomed as a guest, where Tessa Morrison had shared wine and gossip and helped plan the destruction of everything I'd worked to build. But those chairs were empty now, and they would stay that way. Some bridges, once burned, should never be rebuilt.